We are speaking about the THA deadlock now, and some things that have transpired, and getting an update on just how things are going to proceed from here. Joining me this morning is former Chief Secretary of the THA, Hochoy Charles. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, sir, and good morning to your viewers.
Wonderful, and thank you for joining us this morning. Now, we saw the clerk of the House had the Assembly meet on 3 occasions. Did the clerk have the authority to do so?
Absolutely not.
So what was
the after a primary election, and that is the primary election held on the 25th of January, the President, under Section 6 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act, would come to Tobago as she would have actually done, and swear in the 12 assemblymen. So that's the authority for the President to have done so on that Thursday that she came. I think it's the 28th.
Right.
The authority was Section 6 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act. After the swearing in, the next item on the agenda is Section 7, where the clerk, as a functionary under the authority of the President acting under Section 6 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act, will perform that duty of receiving nomination for the presiding officer. Because of the equality of votes there, once that meeting ended on that date, on the 28th, no one else, if there is no presiding officer, can call a meeting of the Assembly, because the next meeting of the Assembly by law is under Section 62 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act.
Right.
And that meeting must be called by the presiding officer. So if there is no presiding officer, there can be no meeting called. So the clerk has no legal authority to call any meeting. Let me just say this one minute, that there is a procedure in the Tobago House of Assembly Act, Section 11, for the election of the Chief Secretary. But there is no set procedure laid down for the election of the presiding officer. What has been done in the past is that we would have used Section 3, sorry, not section, but Standing Orders 3.5 of the Tobago House of Assembly Standing Orders in order to elect the presiding officer. And that is what the clerk would have used on that day, operating under the authority of the President, given to her under Section 6 of the Tobago House of Assembly. There's no law, no authority for the clerk to continue to hold any meeting. The meeting ended there, and it requires another type of action.
So where do we go from here? How can this be rectified?
Well, Tobago has the answer for it, but Trinidad believes that they have the answer. And I need to just remind you of this, and remind your viewers of this, that there were 50,062 registered voters in that election. And I have not been hearing this, people don't know this, that there are only 26,385 voters that went to the polls and voted. The PNM make 13,288 and the PDP 12,798. There was another party, Tobago, One Tobago Voice, the one I belong to, that ran a no vote campaign. So 23,677 people did not go on the polls and vote. And a no vote campaign says, do not participate in this mock election. Let the Parliament fix the legislation which they have down there for the last 5 years, and then we go to the polls to have a proper election.
So how does the THA Act deal with breaking the current deadlock in this?
There's no deadlock. There is no deadlock. And I want to explain that to you.
Yeah, I would like an explanation.
What Tobago is struggling for is what? Our power. Trinidad exercises every power over Tobago. Every decision making in Tobago is done by Trinidad. Even though something is decided by the Assembly, it can be overridden by the Cabinet, as has happened before under Section 75 of the Constitution. And the parliament would have already agreed that we should have had our self-determination, our self-government since 1977. It has not been delivered. No form of that has been delivered. Because the powers of government are of three kinds: legislative, executive, and judicial. Legislature pass laws, we can't pass any laws. Executive, they're the ones that implement the laws that are passed. We have no executive authority. Well, don't talk about the judiciary, so that is independent. So we have no form of self-government, although that is decided upon since 1977. We have to understand that. So the struggle in Tobago is for us to get our power from Trinidad. That is the struggle that we have in Tobago. What deadlock are you going to have in a liberation struggle where we are asking Trinidad? Trinidad was under colonial rule, as you know, like Jamaica, Barbados, Grenada, British colonial rule. So Trinidad was a colony of Great Britain, one, Barbados, Grenada. They all went to Britain and get their self-government. Some move on to independence, some move on to Republican status. We are a colony of Trinidad, whether you like it or not. So we are now in the position. Tobago is now in the position with respect to Trinidad as Trinidad was to Great Britain. And what deadlock are you talking about in a liberation struggle? Could you have a deadlock? We don't understand what we are talking about. We don't understand the struggle. As you know, finally, I would have worked on the brief on the document that went to Parliament when Mr. Robinson moved that motion in 1977. I also worked on the document that went to Parliament in 1996 that ended up with this document we have, Act number 40 of 1996. And the one that is before Parliament for the last 5 years, I also worked on that. And this is why I'm trying to get all the parties together, let them understand that there is no deadlock in Tobago. You can't have a deadlock in a liberation struggle. You can't have a deadlock where you're looking for your freedom from another power. What deadlock are you talking about?
Do you believe that the population shares your views on the need for Tobago to have full autonomy rather than thinking of Trinidad and Tobago as one nation under one government?
But we still going to be one nation with one prime minister, one president, but self-government only mean that Tobago would have the responsibility for the day-to-day business in Tobago, making the decisions. And as you know, as a public body, law is the tool for the implementation of public policy. So if we are making public policy for the development and good governance at Tobago, we have to have lawmaking, because you can't implement it if you have no law. That's why you are having so much difficulty with your parliament today. That that the government would have been there, they make decisions, but they can't implement it because there is no law. And then the law would require a special majority, which they don't have. And the opposition not supporting them, so they can't pass it. So they can't do what they want to do. So we have to have that. You have to have lawmaking.
The Prime Minister is saying that the act will be amended, giving Tobago 15 seats and sending them back to the polls. What are your views on this?
Let me say that the document that the Parliament has before it, that it has been sent to the Joint Select Committee, I had worked on that document too. There's a way that we deal with that, and in that document it has 15 seats. But that is not the answer to Tobago's problem at all. Because you can end up with a deadlock still, if I can explain that to you. You could still end up. That's not the issue. Tobago issue is that we want the Parliament to make sure that they pass the legislation to give to us. That can be settled in a day, That can be settled in 2 days, 2 sittings. May I just say this to you very quickly, my brother, that when Trinidad went to Britain to get its internal self-government, there was one sitting in Britain, in England, in London, in November of 1959. And there was a second set of sitting with both government and opposition in Trinidad and Tobago in June of 1960. So 2 sets of meetings, and Trinidad matter was settled. We have our matter down there 5 years. And we are now going to take this to the international world, because what the Parliament is doing to Tobago is contrary to international law that says that every people have a right to the self-determination. What you are doing is contrary to international law, contrary to the United Nations Charter, and the Declaration of Human Rights, contrary to those things. But the world does not know that Trinidad is operating a colony, they call Tobago, for a long time, contrary to the UN Charter. That's what we have to do now. If Trinidad can settle this particular matter, we must take this matter to the world. Let the world understand that though Trinidad and Tobago is a signatory to the United Nations Charter, that they still operate in a colony they call Tobago, contrary to international law.
Well, Mr. Hochoy Charles, I want to thank you so much for your time and your thoughts this morning. Do continue the work that you are doing. And again, when it comes to the THA elections and the like, thank you for sharing with us this morning.
Thank you very much, sir. Right. And what we are trying to do is to build a stronger Trinidad and Tobago, not to divide it. Build a stronger, because all the institutions are in Trinidad very quickly. And if you have a disaster in Trinidad that wipe out Trinidad and didn't touch Tobago, Tobago is also dead because everything is down there. And all we say, we want to strengthen that union, not to break it up. Have a nice day, sir.
Have a great morning. Thank you very much. Former Chief Secretary of the THA, Hochoy Charles. All right, we're going to take a short break and come back with much more. Stay right where you are.
Try, them try.